Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story is regarding the Democrats wanting to tax your unrealized capital gains. This is something we used to joke about when I was a tax accountant around the water cooler going, oh, the Democrats are talking again about taxing your unrealized capital gains. Those crazy, those nutsos. Well, those crazy and nutsos have gone full insane because they're actually trying to pass this thing and it's closer than ever. We have the United States Secretary of the Treasury talking about taxing billionaires' unrealized capital gains. Let's go ahead and roll that footage.
Well, I think what's under consideration is a proposal that Senator Wyden and the Senate Finance Committee have been looking at that would impose a tax on unrealized capital gains on liquid assets held by extremely wealthy individuals, billionaires. I wouldn't call that a wealth tax, but it would help get at capital gains, which are an extraordinarily large part of the incomes of the wealthiest individuals. And right now, escape taxation until they're realized, and often they're unrealized, and at death benefit from so-called step-up of basis. So it's not a wealth tax, but a tax on unrealized capital gains of exceptionally wealthy individuals.
There you go, folks. You heard it from the horse's mouth. The Democrats are targeting a hyper subset of people, the ultra rich, the billionaires, the 1%, according to Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, AOC. The socialists that have infiltrated the Democratic Party believe that the Elon Musks and the Bill Gates of the world are evil because they stole the money from the laborers. And because they stole that money, they believe they must steal it back using the power of the federal government to redistribute that wealth through these social programs that they're currently trying to pass through Congress at the moment. It's wrong, it's evil, it's disgusting, and we will not be fooled by what the Democratic Party is trying to do. This is an annual tax on billionaires' unrealized capital gains from the tradable assets like stocks or bonds. These tradable assets would be taxed at roughly 24%. Now, it's not exactly 24, it's a little bit less than that. It's 23 point something. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But to give you a perspective of how nuts this is, if Elon Musk was taxed on his unrealized capital gains, which is roughly $84 billion, he would owe the federal government, the IRS would come after him for $20.1 billion on something that hasn't even happened yet. That's how nuts this is. If you were to talk to a CPA, a financial advisor, they would all say, if they are sane and they know what they're talking about, this is nuts. This is absolutely crazy. It's the worst tax law, tax legislation that's even been remotely passed like this. It's just batshit crazy. I know that didn't even make any sense, but this is nuts, folks. So some of you might be saying, Brad, there has to be more to unrealized capital gains than just stocks and bonds. And I would say you're absolutely right. There is. There's non-tradable assets like private companies or property. And how they're going to tax this is they're going to tax it retroactively once it is sold. And we have to look at kind of who does this really affect? And this really only affects those that have a net worth of $1 billion or more and have made $100 million for 3 consecutive years, which isn't a ton of people. And it just so happens to come out to less than 1,000 people all across the United States. But here's the problem. The government never gets smaller, it only gets bigger, and it wants more and more power. So once they start targeting the ultra wealthy, the billionaires, and they have found some way to sit there and report all this stuff to the IRS, then what they're going to do is they're going to start going down to the rich, and then they're going to go down to the middle class. And there's already talks of that happening now before this legislation is even passed. Right now, there's roughly 7 politicians that are looking to eliminate or drop the limit to anybody that has a net worth of $1 million or more. If you live in California and you own a home or something of that nature, you have assets that have accrued more than $1 million, and there's some way for them to create some sort of valuation of those assets and reporting it to the IRS, then you would be included in this unrealized capital gains tax, which is nuts. And again, we shouldn't allow a president to be set like this or presidents to be set like this, where you're going after unrealized capital gains. Again, I've always said when we are tax accountants, we only joked about this whenever the Democrats would talk about it because we never thought it would happen. And again, it's closer than ever to actually being realized. Well, why is this bad? Is because Elon Musk is somebody that sits there and hires a lot of people, and it's very damaging. And again, it also sets a precedence to come after people like us in the middle class. Well, Elon Musk slams Democrats over extreme proposal to tax unrealized capital gains. This is by Ryan Savitra of the Daily Wire. Entrepreneur Elon Musk slammed Democrats in a tweet on Monday over a proposal that they are considering, which would tax unrealized capital gains. The proposal for the plan has gained steam in the wake of Senator Christine Sinema, Democrat of Arizona, opposing raising corporate and individual tax rates to pay for Democrat President Joe Biden's massive multi-trillion-dollar social spending bill. And let's call it what it is. It is a social spending bill. It is by no means an infrastructure bill if you look at these calculations. Well, the New York Times reported billionaires could be taxed on unrealized capital gains on their liquid assets. Democratic officials said yesterday it would affect people with $1 billion in assets or those who have reported at least $100 million in income for 3 consecutive years, which is what I just stated. That would ensure perhaps 700 taxpayers or the wealthiest 0.0002%, but Democrats hope it would generate at least $200 billion in revenue over a decade. And that's how bad their budget is. That is how bad these politicians are budgeting across the United States, is they're trying to squeeze out $200 billion to pay for these social programs. They'll do anything they can to steal from the American taxpayer. Musk criticized the plan in a tweet that came in response to a sample letter that someone posted online that offered a template for what Americans should say to their elected officials. And here's what the letter is. Dear Senator of Congress member's name, I expect you to oppose the Wyden proposal to tax unrealized capital gains. Although the proposal targets billionaires and not myself, the government of elected representatives have a track record of scope creep when writing new taxes. I anticipate that any new unrealized capital gain taxes will slowly make their way down to the middle class retirement investments over the next several years. And absolutely correct. It will start with billionaires, then eventually millionaires, then the modest investments will get hit possibly within a decade. Although principal residences and holdings of 401k plans apparently will be excluded, do we really believe our politicians, folks? You think they'll actually be excluded? Do you think our property, our principal residences will be excluded? The Democrats only want your money. They only want bigger government. The government will come to your house with a gun and they'll sit there and take your money if they want to. The Wyden proposal takes new tax hikes a step closer to imposing unrealized capital gains tax on the average investor. And they are not wrong. They will come for it. It is only a matter of time. You give the government an inch, they are going to take a mile. It's just going to take a while to get there. They're already doing this with the Second Amendment, right? They say, oh, I'm not going to take away your guns. They're slowly chiseling away at it, folks, to get there at some point in the future. It might not happen in 50 years. It might not happen in 100 years. It might not happen in 200 years. But at some point, if you keep giving government power, they're going to take everything from you. Quote, exactly, Musk, who is at the moment the wealthiest person in the world, wrote, eventually they run out of people's money and then they come for you. And he is not wrong. Tillman Fertitta, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that, it's the owner of the Houston Rockets, and numerous other businesses warned on Monday that if the plan from Democrats was passed, that it could destroy capitalism in the United States. The Democrats are already on their way to destroy capitalism. That's why the Democratic Party is being infiltrated by socialists. It's not a ton of them, but the second you start infiltrating with some, there's more to come later. When asked about the tax during a Fox News interview, the owner of the Houston Rockets said that if it passes, it will make me not build as much because I won't have the ability that creates so many more jobs, right? Because you took that ability away by taxing the hell out of the ultra rich because you think that they have so much. You think that so much is just sitting in their pockets. But again, we have to realize this isn't assets, you guys. This isn't just cash just sitting there. And now I understand you might say, well, Brad, through these evaluations, they sit there and offset their debt against their unrealized taxable gains and all this other stuff. And that's how they manipulate it. And that's how they're able to take out more loans. And that's how they're able to get bigger and all this other stuff. I fully get that, but that's too much for the show right now. What they're doing, we need to simplify this for the average person. This is wrong what they're doing. He goes on to say this, quote, and then you're paying so many different taxes, he continued. Every employee pays payroll taxes, all your sales taxes, all the taxes they pay. It's truly a mistake. It's a social way of not doing things in this country. It's the European way. Our great capitalism will slowly come to an end. And do I believe in taxes to make our country great? Absolutely. I don't think a balance sheet billionaires tax is the way to do it. Do it on income. You can't do it on balance sheets. It'll never be right. And he's absolutely correct on this, but it's not going to stop the Democrats from trying to take your money. It's not going to stop these elected officials, these politicians from stealing from you. And even though they're stealing from the rich and the ultra rich, the billionaires, at some point it's going to come down to getting to you. It might not happen in our lifetime, but it might happen in our children's lifetime or our grandchildren's lifetime. Again, whenever you give the federal government an inch, they're going to take a mile, and they will do it. They have been doing it since the inception of this country. But there you have it, folks. The Democrats are wanting to tax your unrealized capital gains, and they're not just going to stop with billionaires. They're going to come for us, the middle class, at some point in time. Make sure you like this video, share it on social media, all across social media platforms, folks. Thank you so much for watching The Bald Brad Show, and I will see you later here on The Bald Brad Show.